music real quick. Hi. So we're teaching my best friend today how to YouTube. We are set up with the mics. We're eventually going to set him up with his own channel. This is Julio Shampoolio Romano, and today's his first YouTube. Welcome, Julio. Would you mind telling all of our lovely friends while I'm over here in the comments and chat a little bit about yourself and how we came to be besties?
Well, being that it's my first time, and of course, no pressure, um,
Never.
I'm excited to be here and be a part of this. And I believe now it's been 15 years, 14, I don't know. It's been a while. Anyway, so I used to teach beauty school and in Silver Lake in a very sort of progressive misfit um, beauty
You
school.
could say it was kind of like bootleg. It was
Right.
like it was a real beauty school, but it was not an official beauty school. It was run by a former Amish
Right.
escapee.
And so when I came aboard, um, I quickly was able to connect with people that were going there, and I quickly uh, took over in the sense that there was really no curriculum or education. So, and I could see that people were upset and they needed guidance. And I had a wealth of information, and I was really excited to start that journey in my life. So it was a really good time, and that's how we met. And I believe,
Well, also, when you walked up, I did not know that you were a guest instructor. I was talking to my best friend on the phone, and you looked like you had actual, like your whole vibe at the time was just like you were homeless, but that
yeah,
was like your point was to be
right,
homeless, but with really nice things because you
right,
worked on an expensive part of town.
right,
And so we literally, you came up and you were chatting on the cell phone, and I made a comment like, oh, since when, like that was when actual cell phones were really hard to get because it was so long ago. And I was like,
right.
wow, this guy just has a cell phone walking down the street. And then I realized my friend was like fangirling out over you, and she was like, I actual stalk him because he's the highlight guy in West Hollywood and he does all the celebrities, and he's coming here to teach us today, and he's going to teach us his tricks, so like pay attention. And then my whole viewpoint of you changed, and I went on your website and I had to learn that you had done
Mm,
a lot of people's hair,
yeah.
especially, do you remember the person who really impressed me?
No.
It was Christina Ricci.
Oh, right.
You were
Okay.
like, I've done
Yeah.
all these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's Christina Ricci's bangs that
Yeah.
got you. I was like, yes, that is
Yeah.
what got me. So
Definitely.
you had a reputation for being taught by the greatest in Hollywood.
Yes. And the beauty school was right in the heart of Silver Lake, which is where I spent a lot of my formative years as a young man. Went to King and Marshall, and so I was running up and down the same Hyperion Street that the beauty school was on. So I
And
felt,
I was too in a different era. So I
yeah,
just came about 2 decades after you.
I felt very at home there. But I also was very nervous, and I remember calling somebody. I don't even know who I was calling, but I had to talk to somebody, probably my brother, because I had gotten there early. And she says, okay, well, just go in and introduce yourself, the owner tells me. And I was like, no, that's not how this works. You're going to walk in and you're going to have to introduce me because I'm not ready to just walk in like that. So, and so, but I didn't mean that at anything other than like it was her place. And I, out of respect for not only her and everybody else, at least say what's going on. Not like, hi, I'm the guy here for today. It was more about like, he's here, this is what he's doing, so on and so forth. So once I got there and I realized right away that I was in my element. And there it was like the bad kids club, which suddenly I was the king of, which was great because I had been through a lot of trauma like most everybody there. And I not only just life trauma and emotional trauma, but also salon trauma. So that
Celebrity drama.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was part of, what I was also trying to teach them. Like, look, it's great to be a hairdresser and you want to do celebrities and stuff, but just understand that it's a lot of work mentally and emotionally. And so if you're any bit empathic, you can be overwhelmed by the celebrity truck. It can run you over. So it was a good time to teach them that right out of the gate. And, and that's a good way of bonding. And I
It
didn't.
was a lot more life lessons too, but also we were already getting real world education because we were being taught by actual stylists who were working. We weren't learning at state board style, even though we did pass our state boards. But
Right.
you came in and offered us like balayage from France, like
Yeah.
when it first became a thing.
Right.
So we actually had Los Angeles hairstylist things to do,
Yeah,
and you taught us
definitely.
bedroom
Yeah,
layers, and
so many things. Yes. Well, I mean, to get where I got, I had, you know, 25 years of grinding and working my way up the ladder and learning from so many people. So, and I was super excited to teach that and to teach relevant things because a lot of what I learned in beauty school was not relevant. And I got, reprimanded quite a bit, and I was dyslexic, so it was really hard for me to learn. So, and a lot of the people that were there had trauma, mental issues, dyslexia, so on and so forth. So it's easier for me to teach these type of people. So that's kind of, but I do have a lot of real world skills.
but you went to SMC, you went
I did.
yourself.
I did. I went to SMC.
So, what about, so you grew up in a household that had a lot of creative musicians, wildness, rock and roll. Your
Mm,
sisters were
yeah.
wild women who brought rock stars home, right? So
Right.
you got to kind of hang out with them as the older dudes.
Yes,
So then you got into fashion, right?
well, I feel that who I am now is a direct reflection of where I've come from. So, and it is what it is, but this is who I really am, and it's now how I need to look to do what I do now. I need to feel a certain way to be the way I want to be, which is helpful, friendly, warm. These are my things I want to be now. When I was younger, I didn't really think about any of these things, but now I love all of this, and that's really what this is all about: is trying to help people and trying to connect with people. So yes,
Julio has been a mentor for so many people in life because he's resilient as fuck. And this man, like, anyone will be having a bad day and come into the salon or wherever we are and they'll talk to you and you're just very inspirational. And for whatever reason, they believe and trust Julio, as they should.
yeah,
But this is also a crazy man who I walk in on, and he's like hiding from me getting his first face tattoo because he knows I'm gonna be. I literally was like, "Do you want to look like a prisoner?" And he opens his eyes, and there I am, like, because I was like, "You can't." Oh, and then he started getting this, and then it wasn't even to piss me off. It was because my Scientology mom was still in our lives, and he was having fun just showing up to our family things because he knew how much it upset her by being a degraded body. Because in Scientology, oh man, you really can't have tattoos.
when you're good at communicating and you genuinely like people, all of this goes away. So I was
Yeah.
able to make friends with Vanessa's mother, and I really actually did like her quite a bit. And it was very hard for me when, just like obviously it was really hard for her when the disconnection started.
But I
But
loved that you could see her as just like a funny, kooky lady because
Right.
you know so many of those.
Well,
She just
I
happened to
mean,
be wrapped up in this
you know,
mind control group.
growing up in the 70s in Southern California, I've been surrounded by a lot of strong women, and that has molded me into a rounded object that I am today. So that's very important today. And so, yeah, I was very happy to meet her. And we had a great relationship until until that it was not happening. And but I always looked forward to seeing her because um, you know,
It was the mom you could get under her nerves without
right.
like
Well, I
the.
mean,
But
yeah,
she's also funny.
and a
Like
hairdresser too.
yeah,
So there's a lot of ways to relate without getting into religion
yeah.
or politics, which is, unfortunately where it all ends.
Yeah, and we have other hairdressers in the family too. So
Yeah,
every time we're together at family events and Julio's there, and it's like just hair talk, really. So it's kind of easy to get along.
right. And
Yeah.
fashion is the driving force of a lot of things. But then now,
And music, and that's been
but
our.
now mental health is getting more, it's a bigger wave to ride now and a little more exciting
Well,
with a
it's
lot.
also a little more necessary.
Yeah, there's a big payoff. So that's kind of a where we're at now.
Yeah. Um, and I wanted you to explain how you got your name, Shampoolio, because that's the name of his hair salon. It's on
Right.
Melrose, and he has owned it. So ever since we met, he was mentoring at the beauty school. Then all sorts of things happened, and he was inspired to actually come to the East Side. So there's a bit of a Los Angeles, actually it's Hollywood, East Side, West Side
Right.
rivalry. Not really. West Side is more bougie
Right.
and pricey
Definitely.
and fancy, but also a certain, I don't know, not really our vibe. So we're from the East Side. We grew up like by Big Blue is East Hollywood.
Yeah.
So we both grew up in that neighborhood. And
Yeah.
he ended up picking a spot by a tattoo shop that was like notorious for kind of being a bad corner. And we've nicknamed it Hell Mel because that it correlates with the streets there. And
Yeah.
it's right by City College. It's very much not the safest neighborhood, but it's also like had a really nice little revitalization since you got there and you
Right.
started putting so much into it for the past 11 years.
Definite.
And it's been beautiful to see it grow. It's an ever-growing art project where
Right.
it's constantly evolving. Julio has done a show called The Roaring 90s, which him and I own a little, vintage resale Etsy together. We also have racks in our salon that people can come through and peruse. It tends to be private collection kind of, right? So when
Yeah.
people come in before they go out for a tour, they're like, "Ugh, I gotta wear this on tour."
Definitely.
Or they'll ask to borrow
Yeah.
it. And we'll be like, okay, obviously, right?
Yeah, definite. Well, I grew up in Silver Lake and Los Feliz and Echo Park, but then there was no hair scene there in the 80s and the 90s. So I went to work in West Hollywood where, well, actually, I started in Beverly Hills, but then I went to that market because that's where the best hairdressers were. And if you wanted to be good, that's where you had to be in the 80s and the 90s. So I went
Did you
there.
start with Philip?
I did my due diligence. I went there. I started with Carrie White on Beverly Drive, working for Tova Borgnine. And if you guys don't know who that is, Carrie White is a very famous hairdresser from the 70s who did Groucho Marx and Elvis, Warren Beatty. She worked on very many great movies, The Shining.
She's the one with that little salon next to Kat Von D's place that we went to go visit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And then, so I started there, and and then I migrated to West Hollywood after that, and I did a 10-year apprenticeship there, and I learned from 5 of the best hairdressers in the market, and was lucky enough to show up there, and that's
In a time when hair was like his circle was doing the Aniston, like the Jennifer
Yeah.
Aniston Friends cut.
Right.
So it was quite a big deal
Yeah.
in their own right.
Chris
Of
McMillan was there.
yeah,
He was just starting out, and he started out and caught fire there. Chris McMillan was from Redondo Beach, and he migrated to Estilo Salon, which is where I had just gotten my apprenticeship, and he had just gotten promoted to the floor there, and then we were already working with Teddy Antolin, who was David Bowie's stylist, who hung out with Warhol, and then Philip Carrion, who was Prince's stylist, and then Robert Ramos, who is Stevie Nicks' stylist. Not to mention all the other celebrities that were coming and going.
and Robert is like the sweetest man too, just
Definite.
by nature.
Yeah.
So
Yes, and these are very, very intelligent gay men that really know how to do everything. So coming in as a young man, I didn't really have the skill set that they had. So it was very overwhelming, but also great. I had something to strive for. They were very great at the music, the food, the coffee, the hair, the makeup, the lighting. So many things they micromanaged, and they created this amazing vibe where celebrities would show up all the time. I remember sitting on the back patio with Winona Ryder and Brittany Murphy, and just me and them, just chatting. And I found a way to communicate with these people because I was not, it wasn't about me. I was there to
yeah,
help them. And I was there to listen and there to be empathic. And so I forged a lot of great relationships, and they really did trust me. And I got to see things that other people didn't because
mm-hmm.
I was I had great manners. I showed up on time. I
Mm-hmm.
really, made an effort to do the things the right way. And the other thing is I was heavily managed, so there was no doing things the wrong way. So luckily for me, I was able to just be there and soak up so much. But my role was very important. I communicated with everybody. I ran that floor back and forth. I worked for the
Tell
owners.
them why you got your nickname now, because
Um,
that was the part of the story that we're at.
right. Definite. So we worked right on Beverly Boulevard in Martel, and next door to us was LA Eyeworks, which is a very iconic eyewear brand that is from LA. And so the owners of LA Eyeworks were coming to Estilo Salon to get their hair done. And these women, mind you, were always dressed to the nines. They never left unless they were done up from head to toe. And their eyewear was very amazing, fashion forward. It still is. It just was so imaginative and colorful and cool and all these great shapes. And and they were people were wearing, every celebrity was wearing their glasses. So anyway, those ladies were coming in, and I was washing them because I was the shampoo guy. And so I got good at that. And one time I gave a really good shampoo, and one of the ladies stood up and she said, you know, that was really great. I think I'm gonna have to call you Shampoolio now. And everybody laughed, and I was like, oh my god, I'm embarrassed. Was so embarrassed, like Shampoolio. Like I didn't like that because I wanted respect at that point. I didn't quite get the sense of humor of it, so I was really annoyed by that. But then I noticed everybody laughed, and during that time, I had just started out, and half of the upper echelon of the staff would not speak to me because I was expendable and I was the lowest man on the totem pole. So,
Relax.
as
Sit
soon
back
as
and
I
look at the
got that, as
camera.
soon as I got that name, then everybody started talking to me. So then I was accepted. So then I had to realize, like, okay, it's not about you. It's not about. This is your respect.
Yeah.
This is how they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's not how you thought it was going to be. So that's how I got it. And so that became my name, and that's how I was known. So when it came time to open my own business, it was the obvious choice. And
Yeah.
it's also really funny now, and I get it. And I'm so glad that they got that too. And humor is a very important part of who I am and what I'm about, and laughing at myself. I just didn't get that then. I wasn't in the headspace to be ironic and funny yet, which is where I live now. And so I thank God that these women were there to push me in that direction. So yes, it's ridiculous and funny, and
Tell them the full name of the salon.
it's called the Shampoolio Experience, which is for my love of Jimi Hendrix and everything that he stood for. He was a fashion icon. His hair always looked great. His outfits were always great. He played guitar differently. He obviously is dyslexic and left-handed, just like I am. So we have a lot of things in common in that way. Even though I don't play guitar, I love guitar so much, and it's my favorite instrument. And I definitely do things differently. And I felt a lot of strength from watching Jimmy and listening to him. Like, okay, it doesn't have to be conventional. I can do it artistically, and I can make this work. So when it was time to name it, I really needed to feel a certain way about the name. So that was
I
the
think we have to pause. This is Lexi. She's our angel. Her full name is Alexis Carrington from Absolutely Fabulous. She came from the shelter in a bad part of town with the name Lexi, so we gave her a ab fab name when she joined our squad about 7 years ago. So she's my protector. She loves both of us equally, but she loves her mommy more. And she lives with me now, but she's lived with both of us over time. So I want to tell, everyone needs to get a blowout at the Shampoolio experience. It's kind of an experience unlike any other, and that's what everybody always tells us,
right.
which is really nice and fun. They say that when we come here, we feel like we're in your living room. I say, pick a tarot card, and can we get you some espresso, and it's really fun.
Well, I think that from being traumatized for so long, we tried to create an environment that is non-judgmental and also very open and relaxed.
And safe, because that's why the clients always would come to you there and talk to you, which is what we're getting to about Bijou. And I wanted to give you guys a proper intro, kind of.
Right. Yeah, and, I think that it's important to create these spaces, especially now. So, that's what we're all about. And that's what we stand for. And, there's no other place like a Shampoolio in the world.
Yeah.
And that is because mental health and welcoming and
fashion and culture and Los Angeles history. I mean, you have every single photo put up. He also used to work at, we skipped over Fred Siegel.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of places that I did work, which all led up to where I'm at now. But yes, I did get a job right out of high school at Fred Siegel Melrose. And, at age 19, I was waiting on Joan Jett and Billy Idol and Aerosmith, the Scorpions, Kim Basinger, Kelly McGillis. I mean, you name it, they were coming. And, Well,
but part of that is that you have the background, right? And then I came up in an era right after you. So, no, it's not husband and wife, whoever in the chat is saying that. This is my best friend, Julio, and, life, just one of my favorite people who we just kind of do life together because neither of us have families anymore. His from addiction. His mom unfortunately passed away when he was younger from an overdose. His sister was one of the first porn stars in the 90s. Was it
Mm.
90s or was it 80s?
It was the 80s.
Yeah, she acquired HIV, which then turned into AIDS,
Mm.
and she ended up passing away. His family has splintered off because his father decided to become a preacher in Corona,
Mm.
as they do.
Mm.
You know, and dad was like, let me be church man. And mom said, no, I'm a hippie and I'm going to raise my children how I want, right? And mom
Yeah.
was your influence. So,
Well, I love my mother so much, even though, she was kind of unqualified for the job. But, she did her best. But I really did choose my mother. My father was horribly um, conservative, and my mother was super, super cool.
mhm.
So, of course, I went with her because I didn't really like my father's vibe. Um, and so, my mother meant everything to me, even though she had a lot of addiction problems and she, just wasn't quite there for me. Um, but, through therapy and mentoring, I'm a lot better person. I totally
In
understand.
my education through the last 8 years, every day I've come home from or come to work and we've talked about it and processed it together. We
Yeah.
did a lot of energy work. We did
Oh,
a
for
lot
sure.
of talking out
Mm.
loud these theories that we didn't understand why our life was kind of like stalled. And it was already because of our own beliefs. Like we were
Right.
already friending, partnering, supporting each other through life, but almost like bumbling because we weren't looking at the mental health aspect. But he
Mm.
did notice all of his friends were getting caught up in addiction, and
Yeah.
he's had to make
Badly.
a conscious
Yeah.
choice to, and we love all of our friends,
Yeah.
right? Like, we don't want to not be
Well,
around our friends.
it's true. It's kind of how I loved my mother, even though it was hard to see her because she was in bad
Yeah.
shape. I still loved her, but
Yeah.
I had to create boundaries with my mother, which gave me strength to create boundaries with my friends in present
Yeah.
time where I'm not then affected by the mistakes that they make, but they still know that I love them and I'm here for them. But I just can't be there on the day to day when things are really nutty. I need
Well, but
consistency.
you've also had to do things uncomfortable and unnatural for you, especially the last couple years. And I want to like acknowledge how much you've grown because you've had to really put people you love in out of concern. You have to move them slightly closer away when they're
Yeah,
going through addictions or
yeah,
farther away from you, and you're doing it on purpose, and we're trying to do it with grace so
definitely.
that
Yeah,
you don't get triggered. You're not
yeah,
like, okay, fine, if I'm the only one,
right,
because
right.
they all want you to be that guy. So
Enabling
it's,
does not help,
yeah.
and I've realized that. So I've stopped doing that. I don't have a safe space for addicts to hang out anymore, and um, but I do have a safe space for people who are working on their life. Yes. So
And that's why,
that was a big.
to get to the lead. I mean, so Julio and I have been talking about for years. I mean, we hear things all the time as Hollywood locals and natives, people who he gets all sorts of interesting clients, as do I, who just want to talk because it's a safe place, and we're not
Mm,
here to talk about any of that because we respect that environment almost like a therapy zone. But something he had mentioned, since everyone's been speculating, like they've really been speculating about what's up with Bijou, and we don't we weren't there. We don't have evidence. There's so much we've heard, that she could be a victim of him herself, which is probably the case. Battered woman syndrome is a real thing, as is Stockholm syndrome. What came out on the tapes recently were women saying that Bijou did know. She kind of warned people to leave. So for me, I feel very sadly for her that she's in a position that there's no good way to turn, and I've been there before. Like, it's a double bind. So either way, what I wanted to focus on is not the egregious person or things she's done, which I'm not saying she has not, because I know she has quite a reputation in Hollywood, and her actions. Please feel free to judge everybody on their actions alone. But what I wanted to bring to the table was something Julio had brought up that I'm not sure if many people had heard, and it gave me a better perspective of why she's in the situation that she is. So when you were working at
I was working at Deluxe Beauty
oops,
Parlor in the late 90s. And so that was a place where a lot of celebrities came and a lot of Scientologists came. Um, and a lot of bands came and yeah, and we would hang out there and work there, and we created a vibe so people would show up at all hours and we would get high together and have fun and do wild projects. And so yes, that's where I met her. She came in off the street. She was a friend of somebody that was there. I can't even remember what. And there
you
was
said she was with another younger woman.
some
You
there
said
was
that there was like the crew of, oh, that's what it was. There was like a crew of young Hollywood girls, and you had done her
yeah.
hair, like shaved it.
Right. No, well, her hair was already super short. So um, uh, she was working on some project and she wanted to look really wild. So we went over different things that we could do to her hair. So we decided on doing it was a twist, a circle. So we bleached her hair and then we took black and we drew circles from the top of her head out all the way around the head. And it looked really, really cool. And, and right away when I met her, and she was really nice, but she let it be known that she had been molested by her father. It was one of the first things that she told us as a group. And I think that, that was her way of letting us know, like, don't fuck with me and I'm a badass. And like,
It's
and
like trauma wars sometimes on the streets,
yeah,
like literally
and
proving that you're more
right.
fucked up than
And
anybody, or you're tough enough
right.
to take
And
care of
when you look
yourself.
the way that I do, I know I look a certain way. I'm not worried about that. I actually love that. But people tend to either love that or they're intimidated by that and they need to try to man up and be as traumatized or as wild as I am, which is
Well, also though
not,
too, when you're 16, like that's actually totally normal if you've
yeah,
been through trauma. So as an observer to it,
yeah,
at 16, yeah, a lot of people do it as adults,
yeah,
but at 16, that's a totally normal growth stage to
definite.
be like, yeah, I'm fucked up and
Yeah.
trying on new things.
Yeah, and straight up, yeah, I've already been fucked by my father, so what the, so fucking step back. And, it was very punk rock. And so
That's so harsh.
I think, we all kind of stepped back a bit, but then it wasn't a big deal. We just moved on because we had all been through a lot. But, that was an interesting place because so many people came and felt so they were in awe of us, and we worked really hard on our image then, just like I do now. And I never went anywhere unless my hair and my outfit was right. And when I went into that salon, I had a certain vibe, and so people trusted me, and they also knew that I was fucked up and I had been through some shit. So they also trusted.
You have to be through a little bit for somebody to trust you. I feel like there's
Right.
something in your eyes and
Well,
your
when you
presence.
grow up in Hollywood, I'm in my 50s now, so I've been through a lot of shit. I've had to fist fight, I've been loved, I've been hated, I've been beaten, I've been chased, I've beaten people up. I've been through it all. So yeah, but that does not mean that I'm evil. That does not mean I'm traumatized by that anymore. It means that I've learned to process this, and now I work really hard at helping people and just being there and not in judgment. And I think that's kind of where I'm at now. And
Because you can sit with people and not judge them, and they feel comfortable enough to talk to you. I don't know that
right,
the Bijou belting that out was one of those things, but it's something that we've worked
Yeah.
on to figure out how to deal with those situations.
Trauma bonding is very something that I've spent a lot of my life doing, and without even realizing what the fuck that was. But now I kind of get that, and I'm like, oh wow, that's actually a thing. And yes, and so having
You were the one who pointed out to me that it's like, I didn't even get this. I didn't even know that, like, even some romantical relationships can be like
right,
always trying to be a restorative
Yeah.
experience for, like,
Right.
if mommy or daddy didn't love me or they're
Right.
not there, they weren't this or they weren't that, right?
yes, I
And
mean,
I didn't even get that until quite far along, and then
Right.
then we see what we're doing to
Right.
create those situations
Right.
where we're getting more attention from our partners or
completely
whatever.
yes. And then
Yeah.
you know, I had no idea what issues I had, and so that was all revealed to me, you know, in the last 10 years. So now I know a lot more about myself than I ever did, which is great because now I own it. And like, yes, these things happen, but no, I'm not victimized by it. It is my story, but that's also now my past. But
Yeah.
it's very important to be present and I, you know, I say this all the time. I didn't bring that baggage with me. I only brought the warmth and the love. Whatever that baggage was, boom, I took it off. And it's very important to try to do that. And, you know, it wasn't easy at first, but I don't want to bring, since I've been marginalized and attacked and judged, I don't want to do that to the people I'm managing now. And people look to me to be a leader. So I don't want to be there with force.
Tell them about Boyd, would you? Because I just want to talk about Boyd for a second. Because Boyd passed away during the pandemic,
Yes.
and
Yeah, and if you think I'm gritty, you know, there's many other people that I grew up with that are even way grittier. And
I mean, he's somebody who passed away.
during the pandemic.
Yeah,
and-
but I found it on the Corner website.
Right.
Like, I have a dark habit of checking the Corner website because there are public records for Los Angeles, and we know so many people
Yeah.
who passed away constantly, and sometimes that's how
Definite.
we find out that
Yeah.
our friends have passed away. Boyd was Julio's mentor and had a extremely successful salon and brought Julio in to work there, right? When you first met him?
Boyd and Jay, yes. They made a giant impact on my life. And Boyd is one of those people, when you meet him, he's scared straight walking. So as soon as you meet him, you're scared straight. You're like, oh shit, I don't want to do nothing wrong. Like
Yeah.
this motherfucker's been through it. So I would as I got established.
But he also surfs.
Right. And you know, an extremely talented hairstylist. But he's also, you know, was
scary looking and
Yeah,
scary acting sometimes.
right. And he had been majorly traumatized in his life. And he mentored so many amazing hairstylists in LA. And, you know, he taught so many people. And it's really easy to forget him. But he was, you know, very much open heart and would give everything he knew. He would quickly give that to you. And I would have him come in and teach a class at the school, a Scared Straight segment, where we would talk about drugs and alcohol and how they are in the salon world in Hollywood, and how when you're in certain circles, you're expected to do drugs. Otherwise, they think that you're going to tell on them. So a lot of times, you know, we were being tested. So if they were worried that you were going to tell, or you were a
Yeah.
narc, then they would give you the mirror and you would have to snort cocaine or methamphetamine, because then for sure you were not going to tell anybody. So a lot of times, yeah, we went through
I mean,
that.
Hollywood is its own entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Is its own, I don't want to say gang, but it is very much a circle.
Definitely.
Just like everybody else. Just
Yeah.
like how we know new friends, like
Right.
they're know new friends.
I mean, when
too.
you're working with Marilyn Manson's crew, you must do
Yeah.
drugs to be a part of them, or else they kick you the fuck out. So yes, I mean, I went through these times, just like I, you know, growing up in LA, and I went through bullying by gangs, having to smoke PCP. Yes, I had to do methamphetamine with rock stars and celebrities and to be a part of their entourage. I had to take large portions of pills, down lots of fucking alcohol. And I happily did it then because I was traumatized and I needed a job. I needed to belong. Now that I'm past that, I realize how traumatizing that really was and how wrong that really was. So,
Well, you did what you had to do to get by, and now
yeah,
you've learned healthier coping skills.
definitely.
I wanted to actually highlight that Boyd went because he fell for a substance that was highly addictive. He ended
Yeah,
up ruining his own life, and it wasn't even him; it was the drugs. Don't do that, the mic.
yeah,
Um, we're not used to doing mic stuff, so I'm just coaching him through this and trying to make it easy. You guys, there's 88 people watching us live right now, so I'm just trying to give you guys a pleasurable experience, not boss him around. Um, but we're getting used to it and we're doing it on the go because that's what we do. But Boyd actually ended up, his life crumbled after drugs
mm.
and he ended up robbing his own salon, right?
He did. In his heyday in the 90s, he grabbed his gun and robbed his own salon at gunpoint because he was so high and been up for so many days and he knew there was money there. So he went and pulled a gun and, and took everything and left and went on a run. And he eventually got arrested and did time and got out, got sober, and changed his life. So,
But
in the end, he ended up succumbing back to it because
But hold on.
yeah,
In the middle, so there's a lot more to that. That happened. He got sober. Um, and when you've made a lot of bad choices in your life, and this is sometimes how I think about people who have come out of Scientology, especially people who didn't have the opportunity that I did to kind of assimilate to the public, the real world. Like we were so kept in a bubble. Julio taught me a lot about the real world and how things work out here. And we were both from the same area. So I was able to listen to him, take his advice, and through his actions, I knew that I could trust him. That's why we've become so close.
mm,
There's very rare people like that. And you also became somebody who I could test reality
mm,
against and be like, is this how the real world works?
right,
Is this how the real world works? Right? So Julio's a very kind person, and he has on his shirt right now, sit back, empath warpath, because that's us, right? Like we're empaths on a warpath. And that's like mobilization of empathy, not weaponization of
mm,
empathy, which is what these groups do, and
mm,
terrorist organizations and extremists
yeah,
and all that. But my point being is that you gave Boyd an opportunity
mm,
because a lot of people did not.
yeah,
And he had ruined his life with drug use,
mm,
unfortunately, too many times. And he
yeah,
was driving around bringing like 4 dogs with him
yeah,
at least. Had the surfboard on the car, and Julio trusted this man enough to give him a key to the salon.
mm,
Like I wasn't even comfortable with that,
yeah,
to be honest. And you were so nice and caring and embraced him
yeah,
for a long time until he got too heavy back into his addiction,
mm,
that you had to say, okay, enough. And that wasn't, I know that wasn't easy for you. You
yeah,
said it was at the time. Oh, I hate him, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah. It wasn't easy for you. That
no,
was a mentor of yours that you had
yeah,
to lock out on the streets, right?
definite,
And he was so heavy into his addictions
yeah,
that when we would see him at Echo Park,
yeah,
he didn't know who we were. Like
right,
he was fully having delusions. But
right,
what, like you can help all you can, and then you
definite.
can't let it blow up your own life.
For sure. And it was really hard to watch that because for me, that dissolves humanity and I have then trouble. So I have to disassociate from people when I see them going through
Yeah.
major trauma like that because it scares me. But then it also empowers me to realize that I did make the right choices to get out of that world. And I'm not there playing with drugs. I'm there to help.
But
So
we've had to work so hard to learn those empowerment
right, and
tools, right?
it really hurt me to see him, and
Yeah.
I had nightmares after that because it really just crashed me to see
Yeah.
him in such disarray, and And
And
that,
he calls me, and it's like we're there providing support to each other because of the experience of seeing
yeah,
somebody in a state of
yes,
high off fentanyl.
right.
And we already know somebody who dropped dead at the park from fentanyl.
Yeah, it's rough.
And we already know that that's a thing, and that the LA County coroners backed up 6 months because of fentanyl crisis, and nobody's talking about it. And they can't even get toxicology reports. We still don't know how people from February, the drugs that killed them, and there's a real crisis going on. So when we actually see someone we know who appears to be using and not just suffering a mental health
Yeah,
crisis, then it just like it's a whole PTSD trigger in itself, right?
it's probably the most frightening thing because you're looking at a human that is morphing into some demonic spirit. And so, yes, it's very hard to
Yeah.
process as a human to see that person going through these changes right before your very eyes, and it's not good. And in that second you have to contemplate, are they going to attack me? Are they going to attack somebody else? Are they going to kill themselves? And all of these things go through your head really quick, so you have to make very
Yeah.
good decisions
Yeah.
on the fly. And my dog was there that day too, and I was worried.
Morris has saved you from
Yeah, I
a
was
lot.
worried that he was going to attack Morris, but he loved Morris so much. And I think that even though he was in this, I know for sure he knew I was there. It's just that he wasn't in that reality to communicate with me. But I know that me being there was some sort of comfort for him and Morris. But I also
Yeah.
know that it scared the living fucking daylights out of me. And so I'm working to deal with that. And as an empath, that's kind of what happens. Sometimes you get overwhelmed by that, and for months it can haunt you. Obviously, most of you know what that's about.
I want to bring up two comments because they're really pertinent to this conversation.
Mhm.
One from Blowgel. It's even harder to watch someone relapse to an area that you are working so hard to get out of. And that is 100% true.
So
Whatever your addiction is.
Yeah.
Drugs,
Mhm.
alcohol, sex,
Yeah.
being
Gambling.
bad.
Yeah, so many things.
Like you
Yeah.
can be addicted to so much. And
Yes.
it's kind of just a lot of us who come from trauma backgrounds have
Yes.
all these interesting games we play to
Yes,
get our
yes,
our
yes.
traumas filled,
Yeah.
whatever. So that's exactly true. And then I want to just show you something else real quick because this is important. It's an important part I had to learn. So it's also hard to help someone who doesn't realize they need help. And what I want to say to that is that's exactly true. And I do believe that help exists, but everybody has to save themselves. And
Yes.
I've lost quite a few patients from the trauma center that I work at when people are going through a mental health crisis who have decided to leave or graduated a program and then gone out, and whatever choices they made led to their passing away pretty frequently, or pretty, not only frequently, but pretty soon after their discharge. And I've had to think about these things a lot. Was there something else I could have said? Was there
Yeah.
something else I could have done? Because I was the person there with them on those last days. And you
Definite.
know what I did? Is I showed them love, care, support. They were well fed. They knew that they could come down and talk to me. One of the favorite people I've ever met told me we would sit there and talk about fentanyl in LA.
Yeah.
And how literally this person ended up with a fentanyl joint.
Whoa.
Because when you're on the streets, maybe you just want to smoke a little weed and you end up with fentanyl and then end up attacking paramedics and cops. And then
Yeah.
you're a criminal now. And if you come from a background where, like, you can't just go to the dispensary and buy a joint and know what's in it, and you end up either you're
Yeah.
so young that you end up just, oh, hey, okay, I'll smoke it.
Yeah.
Today, this is a big deal. It's fentanyl. So
It's true.
this person had just, we were sharing all these stories, and I learned so much about life. And these people, like, literally trust me. That's my job, is to
Yeah.
be there as peer support for them. Just like you said, in that moment,
Yeah.
be that person with their pain, hold it, don't judge them.
Yeah.
It's not about you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like all about us, and people try to relate with empathy by telling our own story.
Right.
There's a time and a place for that, and it's important. But in moments of crisis and trauma, sometimes we need somebody to say, like, hey, like, take a breath. Like, do you want to go for a walk? Like,
Yeah.
I tell you to do that stuff all the time,
Right,
and you've
right.
had to grow to trust me to listen.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Elvis.
Well, it's hard to, to accept help, even when you think you're in therapy. But it is very important to listen to what people have to say.
Well, but also it's almost like you have to make your own choices, right? So
Right,
if you're
but
going to accept help, like Boyd wanted help,
Yeah.
but he also wanted to make choices.
Definite. But I think what I'm saying is that when the truth is there and it's been presented to you, you have two choices. You can ignore it or you can deal with it and try to learn from it. And I think, it used to be I would go the other way. Now I want to learn. And I also realize that I'm lucky enough to have a lot of intelligent people around me. So it's probably better to listen now than to talk, which is really hard.
I know we both have that problem. And then you get the two of us together, and like, I'm glad that, because early on when we didn't know each other well enough, we were just like how we were trying to describe how Bijou was like, I don't know, because we're from LA, we're from an environment where we're just, you don't know me. Like, I don't know you, you don't know me, right? And until you get to know people by their actions and not just their words, sometimes you're like, well, we'll see. But now we trust each other enough where if Julio says something to me or I say something to him, that he knows I'm not going to say it pretty much unless it's something he might want. Like, because you trust me, right? It takes a long time to trust people. That inner circle is so important. I'm just concerned about Bijou's. So if hurt people, and we know that, and that's why I almost wish.
Well, her being a parent too, it must be a very difficult position to be in. So there's so many things coming at her at once. So that's really the hardest part. And I think, obviously the most important thing right now is to be a good parent because, that sets them up for success later, and this child's going to have to deal with some of the damage from what has happened because of the internet. So whatever.
Well, not because of the internet, because her father went to prison for raping women.
Definite, and as much as they'll want to hide that, the internet will be there. And if mom does hide that, then she's going to be told, "Don't worry." And so. I feel bad because it's not the child's fault, and she's going to have to deal with his decisions, which is where we're all at because of the decisions that our parents made. This is why I'm here right now. So I totally get that, and hopefully she can make those good decisions and be there for her child and not think so much about anything other than being healthy and being there.
Well, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. I'm going to say if I was in this situation, I cannot imagine being in a situation where the Phillips family is a better option than the situation that you're in, because I did grow up with Jordan and Alana. This has been an extremely challenging. I have not made many comments recently because this is weird for anybody who grew up in the environment with all of these people and know that, like, Jordan and Alana were my friends. Like, they're good people. They're funny. And I got to do a lot of fun things in life because his big brother was on a TV show. It was not for me. Like, we're all still working through what happened, right? Like, I don't think anything for me personally other than witnessing and saying, yes, the Jane Does are telling the truth. There's a lot more, about what happens in Scientology. I fully believe them as victims, but at least from me personally, I can stand up and say, yes, like, the organization has its own justice system. I have spent many hours in the underground tunnels getting ethics handlings because of things that happened when I was not even an adult that maybe would have been reported to social services had
Yeah.
we not been segregated and isolated. And so now, as a mandated reporter, I take that job so
Mm.
seriously, right? And
Right.
I find it really offensive that we're not subject to normal schools where there's
Mm.
checks, like safe points.
Right.
Like you can't come to, I mean, even though that doesn't always work, they don't always catch everything, but there's a social work. I mean,
Yeah.
wasn't there like a social worker at Marshall? At least you knew, like,
There
don't
was,
come to school looking beat up or
yeah, yeah,
something.
for sure. I had a counselor, and I was able to be honest with her, and she helped me. Put me in a program because she knew I was on drugs,
Yeah.
and then she helped me graduate. Yes, so
Yeah.
I could get my diploma, get out, and get a job. And she knew that I wasn't going to be a schoolboy, and she knew I was a good person. She knew that I had gone wrong, and so she wanted to help that process. So
Yeah.
luckily, I got that. Not everybody gets
It
that.
takes that person kind of seeing you, and
Thank
it's,
God. And yeah, because nobody else was really looking out for me then. I was at my most lawless during that time. So thank God. I can see her face right now. I just can't remember her name. But she started a program called Project Impact, and that was to impact kids who were on drugs and alcohol and come from broken homes and stuff. So, she brought me into that program and brought people in to help us talk and figure out what was going on. So that was very cool.
I wanted to read this because it's so touching. I lost a friend of mine to heroin and suicide years back. She was so amazing to me after, oh, we're not supposed to say the S word, sorry. After I lost my mother, and while people judge her for her addiction, I will always remember her heart. And I think that's so beautiful because that's all we see people for. And
Yeah.
we understand that not everybody's from the same circumstance.
Yeah.
And what you're dealing with at home, maybe you're coming from a home of trauma, right?
Yeah.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And I feel badly that it feels like she has no correct situation. If I was her, I would run,
Mm-hmm.
run, and protect yourself and your daughter and
Yeah.
get some space
Right.
and heal yourself, right? Because it cannot be easy to be married to a man who thinks he can have whatever he wants whenever he
Yeah.
wants, and that the word and phrase donkey punch is cool to go by, because I did go to DJ Donkey Punch shows. I did not know what it meant.
Right. I didn't know
was
what it
too
meant.
young.
Yeah, even when you told me, I didn't know what it meant until recently. So
Well, anyone who's gonna say that that's their stage name, and then women are gonna start, like, we already knew this.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's out now, all I can do is support and say, like,
yeah.
When you are a female in Scientology and you grow boobs, there's something called 2D flowing.
Right.
There's 8 dynamics to life.
Right.
I know. One is you. The second dynamic is one is most important, and then 2 is family and sex. Family comes from sex, right? So it's part A and part B. The family part, and then the sex part, right? So when you're a actual child of Scientology and you end up growing boobs, there's something called 2D flowing, which if you want someone, they call it your 2D. So if you're like, I want to marry that person, you'd be like, I want that guy to be my 2D, and like create a 2D with him, and then be like encompassing sex and family, right?
Whoa.
So yeah, I know it's a lot, but my audience here, we have over 100 people watching right now, does know what that means. So I won't spend too much time on it. But when you're developing as a woman, and then you start having breasts, and it was not nearly as bad for me as a lot of women who have told me this, and who I'm speaking on the behalf of, who would love to get it out there. You're very, very much told that you are 2D flowing the men.
Right.
And it's,
So it's
your
your fault.
fault for giving them
Right.
whatever it is they respond to.
Right. Which is when men are at their most infantile. Because if you think about it, men are going through testosterone puberty during that time, and they are totally disassociated with any sort of feelings and or empathy and or reasoning for what's right or wrong. And it's not that they don't know, it's just that they kind of, it overpowers, and society had
Yeah.
allowed for that to happen. So then that's, it's kind of a strange time because you got men at their dumbest, and then you have women already uh, mentally developed, but now they're physically
Well,
developing.
no, and they're not mentally developed. They were already, the women were told, just like the males, that we are adults in small bodies.
Whoa.
So there was no development.
But what I'm saying is the women tend to be more.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm
like
pointing out
whatever
that we're
that.
actually children
Yeah,
who
yeah,
were treated like adults,
definite.
right?
But there seems to be
It's
more.
like a double whammy.
I think women tend to think clearer during that time because they're not
Yeah.
attached to their hormones in their dick so much that men are. And that kind of gets in the way where women can reason and men are just like lunkheads.
Well,
So,
and this is true. I mean, this, our lovely Clearwater Cheryl, she's here all the time. She's so smart. All organized religions blame women and make us out to be the succubus. And I honestly cannot say that that's true enough just in society in general, but religion too. Like, there's this whole story, and in our specific situation, L. Ron Hubbard had young women on his crew on the ship. So this man created a posse of young women
wow.
like Janice Grady Gillum and other people who have channels now who were his messengers. And he was actually like creating all of this not okayness from day one. It was a safe haven for sexual predators because
Whoa.
they don't use the police. And that's all I'm bringing it back to
Right.
is that there's no checkpoints. There's internal justice and internal ethics. And when everybody snitches on you, because it's a snitch culture. So
Whoa.
like the Stasi with the Nazis,
Right.
the story of how like all the Stasi, that's harsh, right? But
Yeah.
they ended up a genocide of so many people because family members were snitching on each other. We didn't know who
Right.
was part of the Stasi, who not.
Right.
We are here
You thought
today.
you were doing the right thing.
Yeah, we're here in my own former organization, where first of all, the men, like, I had to really grow into being a female and thinking that was powerful. And you know that. You watched that. Like,
Definitely.
I identified with men as powerful for a long
Right,
time because
right.
that's all I saw.
Right. Right. And that's just the dynamic that is out there in society. So.
But not even like I didn't know women could be powerful. I just knew that society didn't like it. So I better
Right.
not present it that way.
Right.
And that's what freaks me out.
Yes.
Like when I am writing, because we run a little like store online together, and then I write also with a rescue partner, and people think that they're these men who are like my best friends, and they actually think they're talking to these men, and they're talking to me. And I will tell you, the level of respect, the level of, hey man, you're so cool, from man to
Right.
man versus the
Right.
way that people have spoken to me my whole life is noticeable.
Well, I mean, if you want to be intelligent, you must listen to women because they think
I like that. Go on.
a lot more clear, and there are a lot of things you may miss as a man. So I
Well, we
think,
have intelligences that work together too.
and well, for sure, but I think a lot of people are missing that point now, and they men sometimes get annoyed and want to rule, but and I'm not making them wrong for that. It's just that most of the time when they do that, it ends up in domination, and it's not fair. So I think it's important. The other thing is that I came from a woman, and the women in my life took care of me the most. So where is my loyalty? I mean, it's interesting to be a man, but to be from a woman and to grow up with a woman and be surrounded by women.
Hey, it's the same for us. It's weird to come from a man.
Right. But then like as you get older and you realize like, oh my God, like, whoa, like I didn't even think about that because I'm a man. My brain works this way. But when you actually start hearing women, then you start realizing like, wow, I actually can grow. I can get better. I can, this is actually fun. But it was almost as if I couldn't even hear some of that. It takes a while to get to that point where you're actually truly listening to what people are saying, specifically women that aren't there to fuck you or aren't there to dominate you.
And vice versa, though, what I get upset over, and I've been vocalizing lately, is that literally it seems like we were adulticized. So when
Mm,
you're born in Scientology, you're just always kind of like this ancient being, even in a tiny body, which is super creepy and pedophilic, honestly, and in a weird. There's very odd quotes from Dianetics about young children shouldn't flinch at the thought of a grown man kissing them
oh,
because
wow.
technically there's nothing wrong with it. But what they mean is like, I don't know. I don't even want to explain it. It's madness. But that being said, we were adulticized so quickly
Mm,
and then sexualized.
right.
So early, when Aaron was here last week, we were talking about tiaras drills. He had said he remembered actual in the course room with him. He was doing his pro TRs. Oh, hi, Aaron. Aaron's here right now. He had said actually like he had remembered somebody doing like sexualized things to try to get somebody else, a female to a male, who actually like it was a flunk you of a boner situation. And to be honest, I did that too because they, I don't know, must have told us or some kind of thing came into our mind, right? So they were training us to push buttons. The whole thing is called bull baiting.
Mm,
And you have to sit like a stone and not, I mean, too much blinking, you flunk,
right.
right? And to really get the final pass, it's a 2 hour.
Oh
So you
my
can't
God.
move, you can't flinch. That's why a lot of us afterwards we're always moving and we're trying to
Yeah.
like not look at the camera because we've
Yeah.
done this for so
Right.
long with our eyes open
Right.
and like right. So
That seems hard.
it's very hard
Yeah.
and it's very much creates a disassociative and depersonalized state of derealization and
Whoa.
all of that, right? So it's very easy. And in Scientology, you're encouraged to kind of, in an auditing session, the whole thing is that you want to really like not be in your body. You want to exteriorize, is what they call it. So it's like a thetan in a body, and you want to be viewing your body from 3 feet behind your head. So when you're constantly encouraging disassociation, like it's a
Right.
good thing,
I see. So then that
right?
makes it easier to
Makes
then
it easier to
be
be
bad.
abused
Yeah.
actually, because then we're used to sitting there and being yeah, it
Attacked.
is it's Pavlov training, like, but it's as I went through my psychology theories and everything that they teach you when you're getting these classes and different developmental, it's so many theories combined to be the absolute hellish trap of like, yes, there's no Kool-Aid that the members drink, but from my personal experience, it is poison that will end up if you cannot go with the program 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was my problem. Like I'm
Yeah.
still kind of sad that I
Yeah.
have friends who were able to, in their own mind, it made sense because of their genetics and their life experience. They think I'm really making bad choices right now. They're
Right.
worried for me,
Right.
you know?
And the reality is like just go outside and sit in the garden for a minute and take a deep breath and get back to like regular life
Yeah.
and just living and breathing. And it's so hard when everything becomes so giant and overwhelming at every second. There are no quiet moments
Yeah.
where you're just chilling in the garden, deep breath,
Yeah.
relax, because
Yeah.
it's always the weight of the world is always there. But it's
Yeah.
like, no, I choose to not live in the weight of the world anymore. Actually, I choose to go sit down right now, breathe, and be in the moment.
But
See,
you were so good at like forcing me, like, okay, today we're going to the beach.
yeah,
You know,
definitely.
and we just turn off.
Yeah,
and
right.
Go
Very
to the beach.
important to be in the moment, to
Yeah.
actually live life as it is, at where you're accountable. Therefore, it's the world itself is not taking you over in that moment. You're just there with perhaps somebody else or even dirt or a pet, a plant or whatever. That's reality. It's so easy.
We just have to take a
And
break
and
sometimes.
it sucks because we get pulled so far away from that all the time.
Yeah.
And now I kind of get why the Beach Boy guy went back in the sandbox, even though that was a little much. But I
Yeah,
get
dude.
the why you would want to do that. And sometimes I just need to take my shoes off in the grass and put my feet down like
But it's grounding.
when I was a child, where things were
You're
simple.
touching the actual floor
Right.
of the earth with your feet.
Yeah,
though. It's
and-
like
yeah.
so.
And then you're like, whoa, there's a bug. Let me look. And
Yeah.
then you're like in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So I just,
And remembering to breathe. Like these are things that are so helpful.
I hope
right?
that people can get back to that and less living in fight or flight, which is, of course.
Well, but here's what happens though is we know that we have two systems. So
Yeah.
there's the fight or flight and executive functioning.
Yeah.
When you're living in fight or flight, you're making choices based out of instinct, based out of safety.
Yeah.
And when you're constantly in the fight or flight and not using your executive thinking functions, that's when you're making bad choices. You're just trying to survive. When we're in executive functioning, we can actually start thriving. And when we take that 20 minutes to go for a walk, for me, I'm a little bit, have a hard time focusing. So I need a lot of stimulation going on in the background. I like to cook. You know that? Like,
Right.
if I can spend hours cooking something I really like and then have you eat it and really enjoy it. And like, I don't even eat meat, but Julio eats roasts I make and all like,
Oh shit, you just outed me as not a vegan.
well, that was a long time. I mean, I haven't
Just
made
kidding.
a roast in
Just
quite a
kidding.
while, but I
I'm
used
just
to
kidding.
make these. Yeah, I know you want the hot vegan
Just kidding.
chicks on here to be like, hey, Julio. Like, he loves hot vegan yoga chicks, okay? Secrets out.
Stupid.
Surprise, surprise. But I think the point is just I'm trying to make self-care. I'm glad that we got to talk about Bijou. I did put other people in the description before we wrap it up. Did you want to say anything else
Yeah,
about
I
other
mean,
people?
I did spend a lot of time with Eric Balfour and Giovanni Ribisi, and
And Eric has been in the circle, right? And he
Yeah.
wrote a letter?
he did. He
Yeah.
wrote a letter, and he's a a famous actor, of course, and when I met him, he would do anything for attention. Matter of fact, he one day, to freak everybody out, he got naked and stood in the window of our salon.
Wait, Eric Balfour? did?
Yeah, and all of the men loved it because rarely do you see a naked man, and there's all it's like we're in a salon full of gay
I mean, we
men.
see him a lot now.
Right, but we're
on
in a salon
Hollywood.
full of gay men, and this is like a beautiful, sought after actor. He's a really good looking guy, and he didn't give a fuck. So he was just like, fuck it, and he went and did that, and I'll never forget that but that's the safe environment that we had. But when you start reading these letters, you realize like, oh shit, like these people actually, they have no idea about real life because they've never been held to that standard, and they live in another realm where they don't have to be so accountable.
Well, they're not
for things.
facing consequences, and you
Right.
just saw that. You could have testified to, or you could testify to
Definitely.
that, and
Yeah. And the privilege that they walked with enabled them to write these letters because they figured they could have their cake and eat it too, which it obviously we know that that's not right. But I'm not here to judge. I'm just, I was there. I saw what I saw, and I was definitely damaged by being around those people because I am an empath and I do take on energy. And some days I would leave there and I would be very upset because of all of the different things that were going on there. And so I tend to soak up energy. I didn't know how to throw energy then, so then that would manifest in me guzzling vodka and snorting drugs and taking pills and whatever I could do to not feel that way, because these poor celebrities were run to shit, and by the time they got to us and we were touching them, we were feeling that. It was really
That's why I stopped doing hair so much.
right, and it's really hard.
It's hard when you're touching people who are going through a lot of trauma, and you also, Julio, you might be a high sensitive. I'm pretty sure he is. I'm pretty sure I am as well. we're very, very sensitive. We've had to learn how to manage that
Yeah.
and create boundaries around that. For
Right.
me,
Because I don't.
touching people
Yeah.
all day who I love to. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the problem. It's
Yeah.
like we love to pour our energy
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
look beautiful and
Right.
give them everything, but it's like that's why I had to learn to
Yeah.
go to school to become
Right.
someone who could have boundaries in place
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
that because we
Yeah.
didn't really know
Yeah.
like what even to say to help them other than to be there for
Right.
them,
And then
right?
we get the benefits of what you're learning because then it comes hot off the press and then
Mm-hmm.
boom, there it is. And
Mm-hmm.
it's great, to be able to learn right away what's real, not
Yeah.
just what is, what you're supposed to think is real.
Yeah. I was gonna bring a couple of these super chats. That's what we do at the end. So I was starring them the whole time, like cute ones and informative ones that I caught. Julio, your eyes reflect exactly what you're saying. Clearly not evil, in my head only, and you're doing your own work, which is everything for any of us, and it's dang hard to get there for many. So that was really nice. I love
Thank you. That's
the
really sweet.
support on here. It's so
Yeah,
cool to
it's
just
great.
share and have this
Yeah, I
community.
mean, it's hard. I don't know what the hell I'm reflecting, but that's really nice to hear that, and it makes me happy because that's how I want to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what it looks like. I'm just here, so thank you.
And that's what we wish for Bijou, to be honest, is just support.
Definite, yeah,
in any-
and for her to get back to the little things in life too, so that because I'm sure the weight of the world is on that family, and it's polarizing.
Well, rightfully so, and they have a child involved.
Yeah, it's polarizing, and that's got to be hard.
Yeah. So Tim said the smartest move Mila and Bijou could make right now: get a divorce lawyer and a book
Yeah.
deal. I mean, honestly, just
Yeah.
get yourself to safety. However you gotta
It's
do it. You have
true.
resources. If
Yeah,
Katie Holmes can
right.
do it,
Good point.
then you
Yeah.
can do it if you want to. It doesn't seem like you want to.
Right.
Mila Kunis was also taken, it looks like, a bit treated like a woman when she was a girl. So when
Yeah.
Ashton Kutcher in that video is talking about Hillary Duff being one of the girls we can't wait
Yeah.
to turn 18.
Yeah.
So I was around, and I believe Jordan was dating Hillary Duff at that time, and she was already like in our age group and not their age group, right?
Right.
So the adultification of us has never stopped.
Yeah.
It's kind of challenging for me to see, sometimes older people who act like they want to help and then are there for like banging you.
Right.
And then you're like, wait, I'm so confused. That's what I was trying to say is like because you had pointed out that to me years and
Yeah.
years ago. It's always about that.
Well,
I was like,
it's
damn, that's smart.
as a man, if you're only wired to fuck, what a waste of a life. And there's so many other things there. So if you want to be a full spectrum person, it's not about that. And and a lot of men begin and end with domination and sex. And to me, like, yes, I did have my moments when I was younger, but the smarter and the longer that I live, I realize that I'm much happier not in that world. I'm much happier communicating and listening, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for this reminder, Goldie, because we have a buy me a coffee. It's a buy me a book option. We don't get much support over there, and that's totally cool. We're doing this because we want to, and this is to us a good day. Like for me to be able to share this, look, there's 123 people watching right now.
Yeah.
For us to be able to share this on a larger scale and for
Definite.
you to be able to talk about your
Yeah.
experiences and receive this support.
It's not easy being here in front of the camera and the vulnerability, but it is refreshing to be able to tell the truth and give how we truly feel. And that's what it's about in the end. It's not about anything other than that. And so, yeah, but it's not really fun to be, in front of this with lots of pressure, but we make the most of it, and we want to communicate and we want to help. So that's why, that's why we're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to show a couple other, and we're going to hop off. Yeah, so we got a super chat, which was so nice. I agree. Being an empath, working with addicts, I couldn't do it very
Mm,
long. Yeah, and we
yeah.
have to, in a clinical environment, we're taught a lot of skills for creating safety
Mm,
between our emotions and our boundaries personally, and really have to get down to what you're responsible for and
mm,
what the person in front of you is responsible for and what
right.
your job is, and be clear about it, right?
Whoa, that's
It's,
it's a lot.
I know. And I talk to you every day, and you
Yeah.
still kind of like couldn't ever understand until you saw me in a crisis center where when there's a fight between people who just got out of jail or a mental health like hold, I'm the one running to it because
Right.
I'm the one in charge of
Yeah.
making sure everybody's safe.
And that's not easy.
No, and
It takes
I would have never done that when Julio and I first
yeah.
met, and it's
Well, it takes
because
a
we've changed
special person,
so
yeah,
much.
to run to that to help instead of
Yeah,
run away. That's
yeah,
not easy, and yeah,
yeah.
that's huge.
We had so much. I had so much fun introducing Aaron to Julio this past week, and
Yes.
going to our locale where we hang out, and having Aaron and the whole SPTV
Yes.
fam over
I feel
at our
very lucky
work.
because everybody is very fluid and we have so much fun together. It's like being a part of a band. And I really feel that, there is camaraderie. And even though I'm not a Scientologist, but
Well, and your mom was part of like the one next door.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
for sure.
a
But
very similar
but
experience.
I do get the jokes and it is funny and we do have a good time and there is a lot of camaraderie amongst us and I really look forward to those times. And I have to say ex Scientologists are a lot of fun now and
Yeah.
the sense of humor is very dark and funny and that's a way of coping and making it fun.
And I always love to introduce any of my friends from SPTV to Julio because he's really been a really good role model for me of like DGAF, right? Like, don't give a fuck. And sometimes it's fun to meet people like that because all we've ever met were like people who have taken responsibility for every single effect they've ever created in their entire life. So it's fun to just say, hey, let's chill.
Yeah.
Let's just chill. Let's have fun. That's not our
Right.
problem today.
Today, yeah. Definitely.
So that was so fun. Thanks, Aaron, for sending a super chat. Jen, lovely to see you. Yes, it's obvious you can handle things, but you shouldn't always have to. I love to see that you seem to have many true friends inside and out who would have your back for real. And that is true, and that's why I'm here today. I had Julio in the car with me on my way down to my graduation from Cal State Long Beach last year. We do everything as a family, and family's chosen family, and that's because that's what we need. We need support. We need
So true.
love. We need just checking in with someone when you're
Yeah.
feeling anxious
Well, especially when you don't have a real family
anymore.
right. So then, luckily, the ones we've created are much stronger now, and we can rely on each other.
And authentic.
Yeah, and real, and which is not always fun. I mean, we have
Or
to
easy.
well, we have to deal with some serious issues a lot of times. So it's not just fun and games and jokes. There's a lot of, obviously.
Isn't it funny to like watch me and my friends together, like when you were with Laura and me
That
and
that part
Aaron?
is great, but then to obviously everybody's stories, so what they've gone through has molded them into these diamonds, and now it's so much fun to be around these strong people, especially the women, because they're outwardly funny and they're actually running things now. Whereas I think in Scientology, the men were probably running it. But now in these groups that are outside of Scientology, many of them are run by women because they're actually in a good leadership spot. So.
Well, thank you. I mean, Aaron has been really the champion
Yeah,
for
for
us
sure.
for this moment of everything. But what I love about Aaron is that he honestly didn't want that. He just created the platform, and you and I both know that if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
So since we've started our channel. So many of our friends have started channels too. We're doing one tonight for someone who I know personally. I'm really excited to bring you guys Louis Repetto. He was a childhood friend of mine who also went to Leah's mom's school behind Fred 62 that we went to for so many years. And then all of a sudden he was gone. He was in this York. And I have so much to talk to him about. And I'm so excited. He made an SPTV channel. But this is so happening.
How cool.
As a chain reaction.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. The
and
momentum is there.
Grateful to everybody here in the YouTube community for coming and being with us, and Goldie and all of our awesome mods, and Juliana and Marilyn, and every single person in this community who has just showed up to support us, because it's so freaking touching. I can't even explain it, right?
Yes.
Okay, we have one more, and this is a wonderful person, and she wanted to say, here I go, shout out to in chat to anyone born in a cult. Kundalini yoga is bunk. Yes, I know. I've done support groups with people who have taken it to their gurus had it to where they were in hypnotic states due to the amount of hypnosis and hypnotic 7-day Kundalini dark or eyes open meditation. So everything that I've heard about a lot of different types of groups like transcendental meditation, I've been through quite a few supporter groups. There's a similar theme to hypnotic effects of long-term eye-opening yoga and meditation. And it's just almost similar to Scientology in that way, where you're like with us sitting with our eyes open for so long, or things like that tend to create hypnotic states. So I'm proud of you, Anada, for saying this. 3HO is a cult. Yogi Bahan was a monster. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm proud of you, and congratulations. Thank you for being here with us. I know that you are so supportive, and so many people from so many backgrounds understand what we're saying. So we're not just here talking about, whatever celebrity stuff. We're here talking about actual mental health tips, because we're concerned about our community.
Well, we've also been very traumatized, so it's important to acknowledge that, but also to get better.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you guys for being here with us. I really appreciate this, and we've already talked for an hour and a half. Isn't that wild how that just goes by?
That's wild.
Isn't it fun?
Yes.
Okay, so Julio's starting a channel. I want to remind you guys right now, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to notifications if you haven't for our channel. It really helps getting the algorithms and things. We're learning this as we go, but we have been really successful because you guys have helped us and taught us and watched our channels. So I'm going to help you set up your own channel so that you can go live whenever you want to.
Yeah.
I know you have incredible stories to talk about, just Hollywood culture, fashion, music, art, photography, everything that makes you Julio.
So many things.
And it's fascinating, and I want you to be able to express whenever you'd like to, and hopefully everybody can go over there when we have Julio back and has his own channel. So people are very excited. Julio, hello from the Netherlands. Wow, Cornelius. Cool. That's so cool.
Cornelius.
Yes, Cornelius. All right, you guys. Thanks for being here with us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to be live again at 6 with Serge Delmar, Liz Ferris, and our introduction to Louis Repetto.
Amazing.
And we'll see you then.
Bye.